On this episode of State 48 News.
Can you see how people might think there's a lot of animosity here?
Oh, yeah. I would think the same thing. Yes, ma'am. I would think the same thing. I would say, looks like a tit for tat.
We ask the questions on everyone's minds.
So one of the issues about this bill is that it would take away the control from the cities, give it to the state, and say, okay, if you fit in this neat little box of this many people and headquarters and this and that and the other, that the city loses the control to make those decisions. Is that a concern for you?
That's a big concern to mine.
From insider politics to the feud with a political rival.
I would think the same thing. However, I can tell you with all transparency, that bill was released.
And where one conservative stands on several hot topics.
And it doesn't look good for us Republicans that we have been at the helm for so many years, and we are 47.
Just one day ahead of the introduction of the Stolen Valor striker.
The only member of the legislature that can put this on the floor, one, is Warren Petersen. He's been contacted by State Representative Blackman.
Representative Walt Blackman joins State 48 News for an exclusive interview.
Politically, this bill is an easy win for everyone. Doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, because everybody has veterans in their districts. It's not just the easy win, it's the right thing to do. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you so much for your time today. I really, really appreciate it. I know your time is valuable and you have a lot going on. So thank you. And it's a gorgeous Arizona Saturday, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, up here it's kind of chilly. So
I like to get to know my guests a little bit better before we just jump into questions. And first of all, I want to thank you for your service. And thank you for your sacrifice. My dad was in the Army and he was in Vietnam. And he died a year ago, but he loved this country so much. And I just want to thank you for your service. So
appreciate that. Okay. Yeah, well, appreciate that. Well, just a bit about me. I'm sure you've read a lot of this. I'm married and 5 children. My youngest is my daughter. She's 17. She'll be starting college here in about a year and a half or so. Where she decides to go, that depends on her. Live in Snowflake. When I retired in 2016 from the military, I went to work for the Department of Defense as a program manager for the SHARP program, and that's the Sexual Harassment Response Program. At Fort Leavenworth, I was reported to Lieutenant General Lundy, who was the deputy commander of the Training and Doctrine Command. Was up there working and minding my business and having fun being retired, and got a call from Senator Allen, who I adore, and she asked me to run for office. And my wife and I prayed about it, and we figured out that it was the right thing to do, so we packed up and moved back here to Snowflake. And with that, the rest is the journey. Learning a bunch of stuff in the legislative process. I was the chairman of Jude, I'm sure you know, and now the chairman of government. Quite a few scraps on the way. However, I look at it as, I'm not getting shot at in Iraq, so, social media bites at me aren't bad at all. So,
how did you decide to go into the military?
I wanted to do something bigger than myself. For a while, when I was a young man, I was drifting around. I mean, I was working, but I wanted to do something that was bigger than me, and I wanted to contribute. You may or may not know, my dad served in the Air Force for 26 years. He's a Vietnam War veteran. Was stationed at Cam Bay. I have an uncle that served in Vietnam. He was a medic. He died from PTSD, suicide. So I wanted to be able to serve, and that's that brought me into it. I grew up on military bases. All my mentors were folks in the military, men and women, and traveling around the world and just seeing what our armed forces does for the rest of the world, let alone our own country. I had that instilled in me and decided to do that and joined in '95. And before I knew it, it was time for me to retire due to an illness that I had. Well, not an illness. This is the craziest thing in the world. So I've deployed several times and been in scrapes and just seen a lot. And the one thing that actually gets me discharged medical retirement is an allergy. So yeah, so it is what it is. I couldn't deploy if I had that allergy. They could have fixed it. They could have done some things with it, but I wouldn't have been able to deployed sagebrush, believe it or not. And if I couldn't deploy, then I couldn't lead, and with that comes a whole lot of other issues. So it was best for me to retire after 20 years plus, and then let some of the younger folks come in and step aside and watch them and cheer for them on the sidelines. So that's what got me in.
Fast forward to today. Do you like being in politics? Do you like it or no?
I do. And I like it from the aspect that I get to help people, regardless if they're from my district or not. Now, my first 2 years were miserable. They were miserable because, you're learning, you're drinking from a fire hose, you're dealing with all the media, and you're just wow, this is a big deal. I took 2 years off. As you know, I ran for Congress, learned a lot. Though I didn't win. I think I took away more from losing than winning that race. And then I brought it back to the Arizona House, which made me more focused, more determined, real easy for me to point out the hard right over the easy wrong without fear of political retribution. I'm having a great time helping and serving this state and my district. So that's I'm having fun, believe it or not. When I tell people that, they're like, "What?" Yeah, I'm having fun.
Do you think you'll stick with it? Do you think you'll run again? I mean, what are your long-term goals?
Well, as long as the folks in LD7 want to continue to send me back, I'll continue to take up that mantle. I've been asked to run for higher positions in the state. I think that's a little bit, premature. I know we're having the governor's race coming up, and there have been some talks about me having something to do in that space. However, that's a bridge too far for me. However, wherever I'm called to serve, that's where I'm going to go. So.
Let's talk about the Stolen Valor Act
that
you have.
Yeah.
How did you come up with the idea for it?
Okay. All transparency, there was an individual, Mr. Steve Slaton, that I was running against in my primary, and it was discovered that he had lied about his military record. Now, I don't care how a person serves. It doesn't, if you serve, you raise your hand. Whether you were somebody digging ditches or the commanding general of a corps, army, or the chief of staff of the army, does not matter. You raised your hand, you took an oath. You wrote a blank check, basically, to this country. Doesn't matter. However, when he started lying and embellishing about what he actually did, saying he went to Vietnam when the Vietnam War was over, by the time he got in, saying that he flew a Cobra helicopter when military records indicated that he didn't fly. He was a corporal mechanic, from what I understand. That he was wearing medals that he didn't earn. that was personal then, and I took it personal because I've served and I've had friends that didn't come home from places like Mosul and Baghdad and so on and so forth. And my dad served, and my uncle died from a result of he committed suicide from PTSD for being a warrior in Vietnam. So that really tugged at me, and I said to myself, you know what, I'm going to write a law about this. As I became more and more entrenched in the research, that the amount of people that do this and the harm it does, not only to veterans, but to taxpayers and to programs, it was bigger. It became bigger than Steve Slaton.
Was there a rise in stolen valor cases?
Yeah, actually, there was. Okay. Shortly after the surge in 2007, 2008, we saw more folks that were actually going around the country doing this. It kind of, it was the tip of the spear was when a gentleman named Alvarez, actually, I believe he wore an admiral's uniform or what have you. And that's when the first law came, 2005. That was thrown out of court, of course, because of freedom of speech in the First Amendment, which I agree with. It had no grounds because a person wants to wear a uniform and prance around and say that they are in the military. That's their business. It's wrong morally, but that's how it kind of the tip of the iceberg. And during the surge, we saw a lot more of people committing stolen valor. They were using awards like the Medal of Honor, the Distinguished Flying Cross, big medals like that. And then the 2013 bill came out, which added that you can't benefit from wearing a uniform or embellishing your military record. You can't do that. So that's how it kind of evolved. And with that, we saw an even more and a higher spike in stolen valor because folks were actually figuring out how to get around it, manipulate their DD-214s. So that's when we started to see that rise. And then again, I call them keyboard warriors. Everybody wants to be a Navy SEAL. And we saw a rise of that. So that's where it stemmed from. And before that, I really wasn't paying that much of attention to it. I've heard about it and I saw a lot of clips. Didn't pay much attention to it. It was wrong. Thought it was wrong. However, I wasn't deeply embedded in it as I am now.
So once it affected you, that's when it really.
Well, yeah. To again, in all transparency, I wouldn't be truthful if I didn't say it didn't affect me, because it really did. Because here you have an individual that is saying that he did a different time period. Vietnam was a different time period, a different type of war, but I'm running in an election where my military service is certified and verifiable through the Department of Defense and military personnel records. And then there's an individual who is trying to claim the same thing. And we knew it not to be true, and he knew it not to be true. So that's when it affected me personally. I was put back at it because my military service and veterans are something that is dear to my heart. And I should have, before it affected me, been more in tune to this, but that's when it really affected me. So, I wouldn't be truthful if I said it didn't affect me personally.
You did serve in Vietnam.
Right, I served for 4 months.
introduced this, and there's a ton of positive press, and it's sailing along. It was a 58-0 vote. Everything was going really well. Tell me what happened from that moment to now. From your perspective, what has happened?
So 58-0 coming out of the House, as you know, it was on a projection to make it through the House. I spoke with President Petersen and in January and asked him to put the bill on the board. And he did. He honored his word. Because it had some criminal aspects to it, it went to judiciary, which being a Jew chair, I understand that process, and he was doing his job. So he did the honorable thing to sign it where it was supposed to go. Now, a lot of folks questioned that, and I didn't, being a Jew chair, and he kept his word. It went to the committee, and I knew the bill was going to die when it went there. I'm sorry.
You did? You really felt it would die?
Well, yeah, because of the relationship with Senator Rogers and I.
Okay.
If we look at the backdrop of it, she supported and endorsed Steve Slaton, along with Mark Fincham and quite a other few folks. And they were defending that, even though the records were able to prove that this guy actually lied. And they were sticking with it. So when it went to judiciary, I was just being a realist. However, there was a part of me saying, Senator Rogers, despite our differences, she served in the United States Air Force, a command pilot. She did something that most people cannot do. And that's fly. I think she flew a C-30, and she served for 20 plus years, retired as a senior officer, a lieutenant colonel. So I banked it on that she would do the right thing, despite all the noise and the personalities behind it. At that point, I made it very clear that the piece of legislation was not targeted to Mr. Slaton because of how I wrote it. It wasn't retroactive. It was proactive, and it was to address the need for this and to fill in the gaps where the federal law didn't protect veterans. So, thinking she's going to do the right thing, she didn't. Months later, I decided to use some strategy and to run a striker. And as you know, a large support for that. And essentially, 2030 died in her committee. And I was put back and disappointed at that because in the Air Force, they do have a code. It's called I will not lie, cheat, or steal or tolerate anyone that does. And Mr. Slaton actually violated that Air Force code that she swore to so many years ago. And not only tarnished that code, she tarnished the many folks that sacrificed themselves for that code. So I was put back when she did that. So I ran a striker, and the striker is moving, and the same amount of support. We have the votes in the House and the Senate. And here we are right now where you and I are speaking.
So Senator Rogers had said in that committee meeting that basically she asked her staff to reach out to your staff and try and bring your language, to match it with federal law.
I will not be hearing HB 2030 today. I do want to clear up that we did have staff reach out to Representative Blackman's staff last week on this. I asked if he would amend the bill to comport with federal law, but was informed there was no interest in doing that. My staff let his staff know that I was including it on today's agenda, in case we had applicable discussions before committee. We have not, so I'm holding the bill.
Madam Chair, I move House Bill 2030 receive a due pass recommendation, and I request a roll call vote.
That bill is held.
Madam Chair, I move House Bill 2030 receive a due pass recommendation, and I request a roll call vote.
What?
It is still on the agenda.
It is held, so it's not on the agenda.
To that point, people who are here who wanted to speak on it are gone. To hear and vote on it without public input would
Yeah, but that's immaterial. I ruled it as a held bill. It's off the agenda. And with that, the meeting is adjourned.
Can you tell me a little bit from your perspective what happened?
Okay. So yet again, look, I will not tolerate anyone who lied, cheats, or steals. She lied about reaching out to my office. We had no staff members reach out to my office. And that was a blatant lie. Number two, she said she had an amendment to talk about an amendment. My staff was checking all the way up until the deadline when amendments could be offered. There were no amendments offered from her side. That's number two. Number three, she is the chair of the very committee that the bill was going to. Now, as a chairman, and I've been a chairman, this is my second time, you don't need permission to run an amendment on someone's pieces of legislation because you can just do that. Now, it's a courtesy to let the person know you want to run an amendment. It's a courtesy, but you don't have to, and especially as a chair. If the matter was that was a priority to her, then she would have ran an amendment. There were several times in the Commerce Committee in the House that we were no further than 2 or 3 feet apart, and she never mentioned about meeting or talking about a strategy for an amendment. She came to my committee twice, and we had bills come to that committee, and she never mentioned. She walked right by me and gave me a thumbs up. And you would have thought that would be a good time to say, hey, listen, did you get the message? I want to work on an amendment with you. And she never did that. So she's being disingenuous, and she is continuing to perpetuate a lie that she is known for doing. Now, again, I'm not attacking her military service. I am right now addressing her character. And her character says is a contradiction to the code that she took so many years ago. And then finally, the amendment she wanted to mirror to the federal statute. She was referring to a statute that was unconstitutional, to 2005. And as I explained earlier, that was ruled out in the case of Alvarez versus the United States. The Supreme Court ruled that it was unconstitutional. And then mirroring it to the 2013 version, it was actually weaker than our present Stolen Valor Act, 1424. And our state piece of legislation protects veterans. It also protects taxpayers and state government and those folks that are offering incentives to veterans to be involved. So I don't know what amendment that she was talking about and what statute, the federal law that she was referring to. However, she wasn't in the same orbit as everyone else was when addressing this piece of legislation.
Have you had any communications with her since this has all happened?
Absolutely not. And I am not going to do that. Now, I had a meeting with President Petersen, myself, Senator Bolick. We had some veterans from across the spectrum. We had the chairman of the Veterans Caucus there. And I did not invite her to that meeting. I felt like she did not have anything to offer because we had gone past the point to where she could do anything. It's at the doorstep of the president, the Senate president. And Senator Rogers had an opportunity to do something when it was in her committee. So all transparency, there was no need to invite her to this pressing meeting, and I had no communications with her since.
So quite a bit,
or even before the meeting. Yeah. Go ahead.
So quite a bit has happened in just the last couple of days. You now have this amendment. Tell me about your relationship with Shawnna Bolick and how this all happened and where you are in this process now.
Absolutely. So Senator Bullock and I have been friends ever since 2018 when we first came into the legislative body. She was also a representative as I was, and we began to work on a lot of legislation together, criminal justice reform, as you know. We were able to grow the type of professional legislative relationship that mirrored the things that we wanted to do in our community. As you know, in politics, it's really hard to trust people. And we were able to get to a mutual point where we were able to trust each other with legislation and making sure that we were doing what was necessary for our communities. And it just grew. And for the piece of legislation, she knows how passionate I am about veterans issues, as she is. She had two grandfathers that served in the military, and she offered me a vehicle bill to do it. And I will tell you, it was one of her bills one of her priorities that she was pushing. So she sacrificed one of her bills to run this striker, which 1424, and that is the type of relationship that Senator Bullock and I have had for years, that to do the right thing. And she often, as you know, chooses the hard right over the easy wrong. And this is how this bill began to develop and move.
So this comes up on Monday.
Yes.
Are you hearing a lot of positive feedback? What is the feedback you're hearing?
I am hearing nothing but positive feedback, not only from folks in the state, however, from around the country. When we're talking in the state, for example, Sheriff Daniels, he came out and endorsed it. The Sheriff Association for Arizona came out and endorsed this piece of legislation. General Flynn supports this piece of legislation. We have veterans group from around the country that supports this veterans initiative to protect folks' valor. Veterans associations have poured in over $23 million into campaigns last year. We received tremendous support from those various organizations. So it has been a tidal wave of positive support on this. This is about stolen valor and the medals that we have earned on the battlefield. I had a soldier die in my arms. I've had friends that were left behind. Pieces of me are left behind on battlefields in Iraq and Afghanistan. This is more than just a campaign. And that's why I've said to many people, if I get primaried because I am doing this, I get primaried. If I lose an election, then I lose an election. However, I will lose that election with my integrity intact and my honor intact and doing the right thing. And as a non-commissioned officer, we were always taught, choose the hard right over the easy wrong. And we're just hoping that the Senate President Petersen, which I believe he is going to put the bill on the board. I hope he does not backtrack, chooses the hard right over the easy wrong. Now, we've had a trickle of folks that are in the Wendy Rogers, Mark Fincham group that are against this. And of course, Steve Slaton, they're against this. However, it's a microcosm of what the support we have seen.
So tell me, how did you decide to name this act after Master Sergeant Orlando? And is it Dona? Is that
Dona? Yeah,
okay.
Dona.
How did you decide that?
So that is a great story. So while we were going through the process of trying to figure out that Steve Slaton embellished his records and fraud and altered his military records, Senator Rogers actually reached out to Master Sergeant Dona and wanted to have him authenticate Steve Slaton's record. Now, Master Sergeant Dona, by trade, he's in the intel community. He is a forensic document expert. So this is what he does. This is his space. And as he was going through the document, Wendy Rogers, from what I was told, secondhand information, wanted him to say that the record was a true record that was not forged. And Master Dona, remembering his Army values, loyalty and integrity, honor being one, three of those of the seven, said, no, this isn't an authentic document. It didn't come from the archives. It didn't come from the DOD. This document was actually altered by the individual who surrendered that document, and they were still pushing him to do this. They wanted him to lie to the media and say that it was a document that was real and true. Master Dona did the right thing, said he was not going to do that, and called me out of the blue. And I've never met or spoke to Master Dona prior to that. And he said, listen, I put an initial document on the social media saying that there could be some issues with the document. And after he went back, this is his message to me, he went back and did a deep dive on this, recanted that, retract every single word of that the document that was surrendered by Steve Slaton, and that Wendy Rogers wanted to say that it was a real document, was in fact a fraudulent document. And because of that, it took a lot for a person to do that. He could have failed very, very quickly under Rogers's intimidation. And he didn't. And he came out publicly and said that it was altered. It was altered by the person who had it, and it was Steve Slaton. And for that, during that time, his father was ill. And during this whole process, he was steadfast about the document was a fake document, that it was altered by Steve Slaton, and his father was dying at the same time. His father died shortly after we got the draft done. And because of his integrity, his valor, his personal courage, I decided to name this after his father, because that he is one person that he was the linchpin in this whole thing. If he didn't do that, we would still be doing the back and forth with this. So this is in honor of his father and the example that he set for Master Sergeant Dona, his son, Jack Dona, to do the right thing. And he did it. He's a non-commissioned officer, and that's what non-commissioned officers do. I'm a non-commissioned officer. And integrity and honor and personal courage, that's a big deal to us. It's something you can't turn off like a light. And he did the right thing, even though it was hard. So that's why his father was honored with the name.
There's just so much to unpack in this story from someone who's hearing about this for the first time.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot. And, politically, this bill is an easy win for everyone. Doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, because everybody has veterans in their districts. And And it's not just the easy win, it's the right thing to do. And when you have 500,000 veterans that are in this state that are for this piece of legislation, 500,000, and there are two people that are standing in the way of this because of personal pride, or three people, Steve Slaton, that are standing in the way of this, you're like, wait a minute, why are you against this? Why is there a problem with this? This is something we need to do, honor the veterans. And here's the thing. Steve Slaton did serve. He served in the capacity that his official records dictated he served. He was a helicopter mechanic. He was in for 3 years. He went to Korea, went to Fort Hood, and was discharged. So he did serve.
Where's the disconnect on all of this?
Okay, that's very interesting. I've not heard this from him making that comment at all, to be honest with you on that. He originally claimed that I never served in Vietnam. He also claimed that I was not a crew chief, which I got plenty of records showing that I'm a crew chief. But originally, he accused me of, number one, having a dishonorable discharge. Wrong. I got an honorable discharge. I proved I did a video on it, showed it to him, threw it in his face. He accused me of not earning any of my medals. Okay. He accused me of not being a crew chief, which I am, and with him and his little cohorts. So he blasted it on the radio and everything else, and had his little cohorts go all around town saying the same thing. So this is news to me that he's changing his tune. I don't know why, to be honest with you. Like I said, I know some things about his service, but I'm not going to say it or blast him or anything of that nature, because veterans don't degrade other veterans.
Senator Rogers served. I'm not only protecting the value and the valor of those folks who did other things, but I'm also protecting his value, Steve Slaton's valor, because he served.
But it's very interesting to hear about Blackman now saying that I did serve and all this stuff, and that's accusing me of them dishonorably discharged and all this stuff and everything. That's interesting. Now I don't know if that's a back way of putting down the olive leaf. I don't know, but this is the first time I ever heard that, to be honest with you. So
did he accuse you before of not even having served?
Yeah, he accused me of having a dishonorable discharge.
Okay.
Right, on that. Now, he never said that I didn't serve, but he said I didn't earn these medals, I didn't earn this or that, I had a dishonorable discharge, and it's just a complete fabrication of lie.
And Senator Rogers is valid. And some people, and those two, I think they're missing that. This isn't just about me, and this isn't just about what happened in the primary.
I'm not the type to go around and worry about what people think about me. I can't get nothing done if I did that. But I will defend myself, and that's what I'm doing. And that's why one of the reasons why, when you sent me that email yesterday, I go, yeah, we're going to start talking about this and how this bill actually ends up being. Either number one, it'll probably eventually get thrown out because it's unconstitutional, or number two, it's so watered down that doesn't mean anything.
No matter what side of the story you're on, people believe what they believe. They have their side of the story. Knowing all of this, and from your perspective, you say everything is legit, and knowing that this act is named after a gentleman whose son says that you're not legit, should this go forward, or should the name of the bill be changed?
I would say the name of the bill should be changed, to be honest with you. But I think the name should be changed. I think the idea and concept is good, okay, especially when I see all these Navajos, to be honest with you, for the code talkers. Now do you think it should be thrown in prison and that? Go, no, just slap them on the wrist or something, just put it out there to, just knock this stuff off. What do you do? It's just one of those things. Maybe want to just change the name of the bill, misdemeanor slap on the wrist, and send them on their way, and just be done with it. Just like the same thing goes on when people go around pretend that they're policemen or firemen or what have you. It's delusion of theirs, I guess. So I don't know.
I don't know what to make of all of it. So
Yeah.
I guess that's a good thing for me is I just tell both sides of the story and let the people decide.
Oh, and I tell people all the time, I said, you know, if it comes up, if you want to see my stuff, I got it at the store. Come to the store, give me a call. I'll show you my stuff. I don't hide nothing.
So I have to do my job as a journalist. So I have some
Please
tough
do.
questions for you.
Please do. Please
Okay.
do.
So we've been in touch a little bit this season about photo radar.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
okay, so photo radar, for the first time in 18 years, it was this close to being able to go to the ballot, to go to
Yes.
the voters. And this is legislation that came about from Wendy Rogers.
Absolutely.
And we talked on March 24th, and you had sent me a statement that, yes, you did feel that the voters should be able to have a say in this and that you would hear the bill. So March 26th rolled around, time ran out in your committee, and you had said that you would have it on the agenda for the 27th.
That is going to be tomorrow, and that's going to be tomorrow because I need the senator here to testify to that bill. She hasn't responded if she's going to testify or not, and I don't have her permission to move forward with that bill yet.
And then it wasn't there.
It wasn't there. Yeah.
Right. Can you tell me what happened with photo radar?
Absolutely. The bill was released to another committee. I told my staff, I don't want to be biased to this. So we need to release it, unlike what she did to our bill. Problem is, other lawmakers and chairmen didn't want to pick it up because it was Senator Rogers' bill. Also spoke with law enforcement. I spoke with two deputy chiefs out of the Phoenix Police Department, and we had a candid conversation about it. This bill was written in a way that it would hurt our law enforcement, it would hurt public safety, and it would also create problems for traffic flow across the state. Now, it needs to go to the ballot. It needs to have a fair hearing, and it needs to also be built in a way to where it's not going to hurt our law enforcement. Me releasing the bill was a lot better than me hearing the bill because I didn't want to put myself in that position at that time as things progress to be biased. I know myself. And to do the right thing, the hard thing was to release it. The easy thing would have been to do the same thing that she did to me, to do something petty, put it on the agenda, have veterans show up, and then kill the bill in front of these veterans. I could have easily done something like that to her. However, that is not the type of person I was. I know myself. So I released the bill. She could have moved that bill to another committee, and another chair, if they decided to pick it up, would have picked up that bill. I did that long before that bill was on my agenda or was supposed to be heard in my committee. She did not, I guess, do her due diligence as a senator to find out what was the status of the bill or follow up on it. So her bill dying, it didn't die because of me. It died because no one wanted to pick it up, and there was a lack of due diligence on her part to follow her bill.
From an outsider's perspective, can you see how people might think there's a lot of animosity here?
Oh, yeah. I would think the same thing. Yes, ma'am. I would think the same thing. I would say, looks like a tit for tat. You know, exactly. I would think the same thing. However, I can tell you with all transparency, that bill was released long before it was supposed to be on my calendar. And it's up to the sponsor of that bill, as I did my bill, and many other bills, to find out what's going on with the bill. Sometimes members expect folks to either vote on their bill or hear their bill without them reaching out to the chair or to other members. And I believe, when you do that, first of all, it's kind of arrogant to assume that members are going to be on board with your legislation, even though we're talking about freedom and liberties. That's kind of arrogant to think that. So she did not do that. She did not reach out to another chairman and say, "Would you pick up my bill?" Just assuming that was going to happen. However, I would say the same thing. It looks like it was petty, and I don't disagree when folks question that or they think that. So the only thing that I could have done in the best interest of this whole situation was to release the bill to another committee, which it was. I think it was released on the 20th. Mm-hmm. And she didn't follow up on her piece of legislation, and her not following up on her piece of legislation, that's not my fault. And as we say in the military, failure to plan on your part is not an emergency on my part. So I don't know what to tell you other than she didn't do her due diligence following her piece of legislation.
Do you mind if I ask you about the Axon Bill?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, please. Yeah, that's a hot topic, man.
I know. So
I am concerned about overreach. However, I do support workforce development. The jobs that we would lose, I'm not speaking for Scottsdale, okay? I am talking about the revenue sources, the tax base that we will lose if this is not implemented, and if Scottsdale doesn't work on it. We're looking at a $57 million tax base loss to Arizona. If it's this legislation we're talking about, if it's the company that I'm thinking about, that's $57 million we're going to lose from our general fund and a tax base. That's actual, and then there's dollars that we're going to lose out of Scottsdale. Again, I am not telling Scottsdale they should do this. I am looking at the financial of this, the revenue sources that we get from the state. $57 million goes a long way. Education.
So,
wow.
So I have it on good authority that Axon and Scottsdale are working to try and find a compromise. I don't think that they're there yet, but I do know that they're trying to work on that. What I thought was really interesting, in the first meeting, it was, 8-0. It was, yes, let's, try and see if we can get a compromise here and get this going. And then I listened to the meeting this week, and you had also shown great support for this bill. Can you tell me why?
Well, I look at the economic impact of not just Scottsdale, but Arizona. If we lose that company, we are talking about, it's either 52 million or 57 million of tax base to our general fund because this company goes away. Now, that's not the only reason to keep a company. We're talking jobs. We're talking they were ready to offer affordable housing for the people who work there. So not only do I believe, looking outside in, that's a good bargain right there for a community. I mean, I wish they would move up to Snowflake. I mean, we would welcome them with open arms, have a parade, and because they would be infusing their positions and jobs and so and dollars into our community. The fact that there were some folks that were against this bill, I got it. I think there should have been some more work with this, working with the city council. There is something out there about a ballot measure that was supposed to go to the ballot for the people. I mean, I'm not that far down in the weeds, and I certainly don't want folks to implement policies in my communities. So, there are some steps that I'm not sure that were taken or what have you. However, outside looking in, I saw this as a good impact, positive impact for the economy in Arizona. I mean, look what's happening with our budget right now. If we lose $52 million of tax incentives or tax growth in our economy, it's going to hurt us. I mean, we are on the edge of probably losing what's the baseball team?
The D-backs?
The D-backs, because of the stadium and all that that's going on there, because I'm sure there's another team or another state that would take them in a minute and give them a new stadium. So we have to look for ways to keep Arizona growing with positive economic impact, ensure that revenue is being driven into our economy, offer these jobs, but also give cities and towns the autonomy that they need to be able to implement this. I think there could be some more work on that. I think they need to come together and figure out what they can do to go forward. But however, sending this company away, I mean, I just think that's something we need to really think about. However, I'm not in Scottsdale. I can't make up their minds for them. However, talking tax base, that would help us. K through 12, border security, public safety, those dollars would actually help all of Arizona.
I think, this is just one of those bills that there are so many points on either side of it. So a little bit about me, I'm in Goodyear. We're 15% built out here.
Yeah.
And so the decisions being made at the state level are impact us greatly out here in the West Valley. So one of the issues about this bill is that it would take away the control from the cities, give it to the state, and say, okay, if you fit in this neat little box of this many people and headquarters and this and that and the other, that the city loses the control to make those decisions. Is that a concern for you?
That's a big concern to mine. I'm sure the cap is at 200,000 to, I forget the other part of that. So that really doesn't affect Snowflake or Taylor. Okay. It affects towns like yours, cities and towns like yours. I am not for taking away local authority. That's why we elected mayors and city council members and so on and so forth. They should have the ability to be able to make those decisions. Now, from what I've been told, that they are trying to make those decisions in spite of everything that's being told. Actually going in and taking that autonomy away from local authority, that's a slippery slope. Because it could happen to towns like ours, where the state house is doing that. I'd like to see somewhere in that piece of legislation where there are clauses, for example, instead of shall do this, how about we put may in there? How about we put some autonomy where city leadership can, if they want this type of program, based on whatever ordinances they put out, or if the vote goes to a ballot in that particular city, that they have that authority to be able to do that instead of shoving it down their throats. So there is room for compromise, I believe. But taking away that authority from cities and towns, that's something that really disturbs me. I've had some folks in my district that are concerned about that also. And as I speak to some of these folks that are, working in the interworkings of this particular piece of legislation, I've been talking about that. We need to have some guardrails to protect local cities and towns. So I hope that they do that. I hope by the time that bill gets to the floor that they have worked these things out with the folks that have to make these decisions, mayors and city council members, so we can vote on something that's going to actually have a positive economic impact to Arizona.
So what are you most looking forward to in the next couple of weeks? What's out there that people should really be aware of?
So first of all, we need to make sure that we fully fund DDD. That's number one. There's a lot of talk behind that. We have kids and families that need these programs. to be able to, in some cases, survive. We need to settle that. We need to put down our political parties, come to the middle, figure out how we're going to fix this, where there are long-term positive outcomes for this, rather than having political fights. So that's something you will see from me hearing that. Also, there is a bill that's coming across. I spoke to it on the floor the other day, the DEI issue that we keep hearing. I think we need to have some real conversations about that. Now, when you say DEI, diversity, inclusion, what have you, it's like a bad word. Mm-hmm. We need to have conversations because it means something different to me than it means to someone in the Democrat Party. When you say DEI to me, I look at that as an insult that I need a program to help me get a job, maintain a business or what have you, get a loan or what have you because of the color of my skin. I see that as an insult. And my colleagues on the other side see it as a strip away from equality, a strip away from people of color getting fair treatment. So that's why we need a conversation about it. We can't just throw legislation out with spin words on it for popularity's sake and think that it's not going to affect not only our side of the aisle, but also the Democrat side. That's why we need real discussion. So you may see something coming out of my committee where we have a honest talk about what is DEI and really define that term, because I think it's lost in the noise. And being in the military, we had a program called Equal Opportunity Program. It didn't mean that since I am a Black American, that equal opportunity means that I get promoted because I am Black. It means that I am treated with respect and dignity, that I am looked at for as Martin Luther King said, the color, not the color of my skin, but the content of my character. And the military did it right. And that program still thrives today. Where DEI and diversity, all that came from, I don't know. However, it's being used in the wrong way on both sides of the aisle, not just Republicans, my counterparts, but also my colleagues in the aisle. So we need some hard talks about that. So you'll see that, and you'll see I'm really concerned about public education. K through 12 funding. Are we putting enough money into education? Are we setting our kids up for success? And, we are 47, I believe. I mean, you may have to look at that. I think we're 47 in the country of our standards here in Arizona. That's not good. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, that is not good. And it doesn't look good for us Republicans that we have been at the helm for so many years and we are 47. And those types of discussions that I have with my colleagues and my counterparts that they don't like to hear. So we can't walk around beating our chests as Republicans. However, we're 47th in the country and we've been in charge of the dollars for decades.
Yeah. We
got to do something right.
I really appreciate your time. And again, thank you for your service. And I wish you the best on Monday. Good luck.
Appreciate that. And anytime you need me back on any other type of legislation, you got my number. Just give me a text.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.